I saw Maren behind the Lone Pine Café, bent over a trash bin, picking bottles like someone scraping what's left of her pride off the pavement. When I asked if she needed help, she gave me that same cold smile she used to wear the day she convinced our kids I wasn't worth their love. "I'm handling it," she said. She wasn't. And once I learned the truth, I stopped handling things gently. While you're here, don't forget to subscribe, hit the hype button, and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? The afternoon sun cut hard across the gravel lot. I'd pulled in for coffee, nothing special. Just another Thursday. My tow truck sat quiet by the pump, engine ticking as it cooled. I run a garage about 15 miles south of here, right off Highway 49. The kind of place where people stop when their radiator gives out, or their transmission starts making noises like something struggling to keep going. I've been doing this for 30 years. Good work. Honest work. I was halfway to the cafe door when I saw her. Maren, my ex-wife, bent at the waist, reaching into the dumpster, pulling out glass bottles one at a time and dropping them into a plastic bag. Her hair was thinner than I remembered, pulled back in a gray ponytail. She wore a faded jacket 2 sizes too big and jeans with holes in the knees. For a moment, I just stood there, watching this woman I'd spent 23 years married to dig through garbage. She must have felt me staring because she straightened up, turned around, and there it was. That smile. The one she used to give me when I'd ask where the mortgage payment went. Cold, controlled. "Soren," she said. My name came out flat. "Maren." I walked closer, hands in my pockets. "You okay?" "Fine." She tied off the bag, set it down beside 2 others. "Just doing a little recycling." I looked at the bags, looked at her. "You need money?" Her smile tightened. "I'm handling it." There it was. That phrase. I'm handling it. She'd said that 100 times during our marriage, usually right before I'd discover another bill she'd forgotten to pay. "Right," I said. "Well, if you need anything." "I don't." She picked up the bags. "But thank you for your concern, Soren. Really, it's touching." She walked past me toward a beat-up sedan parked at the far edge of the lot, and I let her go. We'd been divorced for 11 years. Whatever happened in her life now wasn't my problem, except I couldn't stop thinking about it. I got my coffee, drove back to the garage. Spent the rest of the afternoon trying to shake the image of Maren reaching into that dumpster. Porter showed up around 6, just as I was locking up. Porter Keller, my oldest friend, retired state trooper, the only person I trust to tell me when I'm being stupid. He gave me the look. "What?" I said. "You tell me. You've got that face." I told him about Maren, the bottles, the smile. Porter listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "When's the last time you talked to your kids?" he asked. "Ryland called me 3 weeks ago. Wanted to borrow money." "And?" I said no. "Mira?" 6 months. Maybe longer. She sent me a message about some wellness retreat. Asked if I wanted to invest. Porter nodded slowly. "And you said no to that, too?" "Yeah." "They been in touch with Maren?" That stopped me. Ryland and Mira had always been closer to their mother, especially after the divorce. Maren had made sure of that, painting me as the absent father. It wasn't true, but the truth doesn't matter much when someone's already made up their mind. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe you should find out." Porter headed for his truck. "Just a thought." He left. I stood there as the sun dropped below the trees. Something about this didn't sit right. Maren collecting bottles, my kids asking for money, the way she'd looked at me with that cold smile like she was protecting something. I'm handling it. No, she wasn't, and I needed to know why. That night, I drove back to the Lone Pine Café, parked in the shadows where the streetlight didn't reach. I felt ridiculous, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something. I didn't have to wait long. Just after 9, headlights swept across the lot. A black SUV, new, expensive, the kind Ryland liked to drive. He pulled up beside a small trailer I hadn't noticed before, tucked behind the cafe. Maren's car was parked next to it. Ryland got out, walked to the trailer door, and went inside without knocking. I waited, engine off, windows cracked. 10 minutes later, the door opened. Ryland came out first, his face twisted with anger even from 50 yards away. Maren followed, saying something I couldn't hear, her hands raised in a pleading gesture. Ryland shook his head, got in his SUV, and drove off fast enough to spray gravel. Maren stood there for a long moment, watching him go. Then she turned and went back inside, and the trailer went dark. I sat there in my truck, hands gripping the steering wheel, my mind racing. What was Ryland doing here? Why was Maren living in a trailer behind a highway cafe? And why did my son look like he wanted to put his fist through a wall? I started the engine and headed home, but I knew I wouldn't sleep. Something was very, very wrong, and I was going to find out what. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I followed my son. Rylan lived in a condo downtown, the kind of place with a doorman and monthly fees that cost more than most people's rent. I parked across the street 2 blocks down and waited. At 10:30, Rylan came out wearing expensive jeans and a button-down shirt that probably cost $200. He got in his SUV and pulled out into traffic. I followed, keeping 3 cars back. He drove to a bank on the east side of town. I watched him go inside. 5 minutes later, he came out, stuffing an envelope into his jacket pocket. ATM withdrawal, probably. But then he drove to another bank. Same routine. Inside for 5 minutes, out with another envelope. Then a third bank. By the time he hit the 4th one, I knew something was off. You don't visit 4 different ATMs in one morning unless you're trying to avoid withdrawal limits. And you only do that when you're moving money you don't want traced. I stopped following after the 4th bank and headed back to the garage. But I couldn't focus on work. Porter stopped by around lunch, carrying sandwiches. He took one look at me and said, "You didn't sleep." "Nope." "What did you do?" I told him. The trailer, Rylan's visit, the banks. Porter unwrapped his sandwich, took a bite, chewed slowly. 4 banks in one morning. That's not normal. "No kidding." "You think he's giving money to Maren?" "Maybe, or taking it from her. Only one way to find out." Porter pulled out his phone. "Give me Maren's address." "I don't have it." "You know where she's staying. That's enough." It took Porter 3 hours to get what he needed. By 4 o'clock, he had a name. The trailer was registered to the cafe owner, rented month to month, cash only. Maren had been there for 8 months. 8 months, and I hadn't known. "There's more," Porter said. He was sitting in my office with a folder open on the desk, papers spread out. "More what?" "Public records. Court filings." He tapped one of the pages. "Your name shows up on 3 separate documents connected to Maren's accounts." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "What kind of documents?" "Loan agreements, payment guarantees, debt transfers." He looked up at me. "Ugh, Soren, someone's been using your name to move money around." I picked up one of the pages. It was a loan agreement for $12,000, dated 6 months ago. The borrower was Maren Hollis. The cosigner was Soren Valden. My signature was at the bottom. Except I'd never seen this document before in my life. "That's not my signature," I said. "I know." Porter pulled out another page. "This one either, or this one." 3 documents, 3 forged signatures, $38,000 in total. "Who did this?" I asked, but I already knew. Porter didn't say anything. We both knew who had access to my files, my accounts, my information, Rylan, and probably Mira, too. I sat down hard, the papers scattered in front of me. "They've been bleeding her dry," Porter said quietly. "Using your name to justify it, making her think you were in on it. Why would she believe that? Because they told her you were. And because she wanted to believe it." He leaned forward. "You two haven't exactly been friendly since the divorce. She probably figured this was your way of making her pay." I thought about Maren's smile. "I'm handling it." She wasn't handling it. She was drowning. And my kids were the ones holding her under. "I need to talk to her," I said. "Bad idea." "Why?" "Because if she's been covering for them, she's not going to admit it to you. Not unless you have proof she can't deny." "I have proof." I gestured at the papers. "You have copies, and we need the originals, and we need to know what else is out there." Porter started gathering the documents. "Give me a few more days. Let me dig deeper. Then we'll figure out how to handle this." I wanted to argue. I wanted to drive straight to that trailer and demand answers. But Porter was right. So I waited. 3 days later, Porter called me. "I found something. You need to see this." I met him at a diner off the highway. He had another folder, thicker this time. "Maren's been signing things," he said, sliding the folder across the table. "Financial agreements, property transfers, power of attorney documents." "Power of attorney?" I opened the folder, started reading. "For what?" "For your business." Porter's voice was grim. "Someone's been convincing her that you're planning to bankrupt her. They told her the only way to protect herself was to sign these documents, giving them legal authority to act on your behalf if you became financially compromised." I stared at the pages. There were a dozen of them, maybe more, all signed by Maren, all dated within the last year. This is insane, I said. It's strategic. Porter took a sip of his coffee. They get Maren to sign these. Then they create a situation where you look unstable. Then they use these documents to take control of the garage, the property, everything. They can't do that. They can try, and if they're smart about it, they might succeed. He leaned back. Your kids learned from the best, Soren. Maren spent 23 years manipulating you. Now they're using the same playbook on her. I felt something shift inside me, something cold and hard and final. For years, I'd told myself that Rylan and Mira would grow up eventually, that they'd see through their mother's lies. I'd told myself that if I just kept my head down and stayed patient, they'd come around. I was done telling myself that. I need to talk to Maren, I said. This time, Porter didn't argue. I went to the trailer that night. When Maren opened the door, she looked smaller, worn down, wary. Soren, she said flatly, we need to talk. About Rylan, Mira, and the documents you've been signing, and why you're living here when you're too proud for this. She hesitated, searching my face, then stepped back. Come in. The trailer was cramped, every surface cluttered, 40 square feet of a life reduced. She sat on the narrow bed. I stayed standing. How long have they been doing this to you? I asked. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. I dropped Porter's folder beside her. Loans, forged signatures, agreements handing them control of my business if I become financially compromised. She stared at the first page, frozen. Where did you get these? A friend. She looked away. They told me you were planning to sue me, that you'd filed papers claiming I owed you money from the divorce. Rylan showed me documents with your signature. They looked real. They were fake, I said. I know now, she whispered. But back then, I believed him. What documents did he show you? Legal filings, payment demands, letters from lawyers. Her voice cracked. He said the only way to protect myself was to sign agreements tying your business to mine so you couldn't come after me. And you believed that? I was scared. I've been living on Social Security and part-time shifts at the cafe. I don't have savings. When my son told me you were preparing a lawsuit, what was I supposed to do? Call me. And hear what? That you'd never hurt me? She laughed bitterly. After 23 years of fighting, why would I believe you then? She picked up the folder again, hands shaking. Mira was worse. 6 months ago, she asked for money for her wellness retreat, said I owed her after everything she endured growing up. When I told her I didn't have any, she said I could get it by leveraging your business. She told me you were planning to sell the garage and disappear, that if I didn't act now, I'd lose everything. None of that was true. I know. But by the time I realized it, I'd already signed everything. And when I tried to back out, Rylan said it was too late, that undoing it would make me look guilty. Anger twisted inside me, mixed with something close to pity. They've been draining me for a year, she said. Every month Rylan demands money, legal fees, administrative charges, whatever he invents. And when I don't have enough, he gets angry. That's why he was here the other night, she nodded. He wanted 300. I had 87. What happened? He took it and told me that if I didn't come up with the rest, he'd tell everyone what I'd done. What you've done, Maren, you're the victim. Not to them. Mira says I owe her. Rylan says I ruined his life. Maybe this is what I deserve after the divorce. No, I said, stepping closer. We both made mistakes. But you don't deserve this. She looked at me, truly looked, and for the first time, I saw her without defenses. What do I do, Soren? And I made a decision. You let me handle it. She almost smiled. You? Me, but I'll need your help. Everything you signed, every conversation, every lie they fed you. Why? Because they're coming after you and coming after me, and I'm done letting them win. She studied me, then nodded. Okay, but Soren, when you handle it, don't be gentle. I left with a box full of documents, letters, emails, recordings, evidence Maren had kept without realizing it. Every demand, every manipulation, every forged signature, everything I needed. It was a roadmap to a war I hadn't known I was fighting, and now that I knew, I was going to finish it. Back at the garage, I spread everything out on the office desk. Porter arrived an hour later, took one look at the mess, and let out a low whistle. This is bad, he said. I know. No, Soren, I mean this is really bad. He picked up one of the documents, scanned it. If they'd gotten you to sign just one more thing, they could have taken the whole business, the property, the accounts, everything. But they didn't. Not yet. Porter set the document down, looked at me. What do you want to do? I thought about Maren in that trailer, about Rylan storming out, about Mira's fake wellness brand and Trent's smooth voice and the years of lies I'd swallowed because I wanted to believe my kids were better than this. I want them to pay, I said. Porter nodded slowly. Then let's make them pay. 3 days later, Ryland showed up at the garage. I was under a Ford pickup, replacing the oil pan, when I heard his voice. Dad? I rolled out, wiped my hands on a rag, and stood up. He was standing in the bay door, backlit by the afternoon sun, looking every bit the successful businessman in his tailored jacket and designer shoes. Ryland, I kept my voice neutral. What brings you by? Just wanted to talk. He walked in, hands in his pockets, casual. Like this was a normal visit. Like he hadn't spent the last year systematically trying to steal everything I owned. Talk about what? The future. He stopped beside the workbench, picked up a wrench, turned it over in his hands. I've been thinking, Dad. You're not getting any younger. This place is a lot of work. Maybe it's time to start planning for what comes next. I'm 58, not 80. I know, but still. He set the wrench down, looked around the garage like he was appraising it. Have you thought about what happens to all this when you retire? Not really. Maybe you should. He pulled a folder from his jacket, set it on the workbench. I had some papers drawn up. Just a basic partnership agreement. Nothing complicated. It would give me and Trent a share in the business, help you transition out gradually. I looked at the folder but didn't touch it. Why would I do that? Because we're family. He smiled, easy and confident. And because it's the smart move. You bring us in now, train us, and when you're ready to step back, the business stays in the family. Trent isn't family. He's married to Mira. That makes him family. I picked up the folder, opened it. The first page was a partnership addendum, just like he'd said. But as I flipped through, I saw the clauses buried in the middle. The ones that would give Ryland and Trent partial ownership of the garage. The ones that would let them make decisions without my approval. The ones that would let them force me out if they decided I was no longer capable of managing operations. I closed the folder, set it down carefully. No. Ryland's smile faltered. What? I said no. I'm not signing this. Dad, come on. This is a good deal. For you, maybe. Not for me. His expression hardened. You don't even want to think about it? I don't need to think about it. The answer's no. He stared at me for a long moment, and I watched something shift in his face. The easy charm slipped away, replaced by something colder, something that looked a lot like contempt. You're making a mistake, he said. That's my call. Fine. He grabbed the folder, shoved it back in his jacket. But don't come crying to me when this place falls apart and you've got nothing left. He walked out without another word. That night, I got a text message. Unknown number, just a photo and a caption. The photo was Maren, bent over the dumpster behind the cafe, reaching for bottles. The caption, handle your mess, Soren, or we will. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I forwarded it to Porter with 2 words. It's time. The next morning, Porter came by with a file box full of documents. He set it on my desk, opened it, and started laying out papers like he was building a case. Forged signatures, he said, tapping the first stack. 3 separate loan agreements, all with your name on them, all signed by someone who isn't you. Can you prove that? Already did. Had a handwriting expert compare them. They don't match. He moved to the next stack. These agreements Maren signed? They're illegal. Coercion, fraud, misrepresentation. Ryland and Mira could be looking at serious charges. I don't want them in jail. Then what do you want? I thought about that message, that photo, the smug certainty in Ryland's voice. I want them to understand what it feels like to lose, I said. Porter smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Then let's get to work. Over the next 2 weeks, Porter and I built our case. We documented every forged signature, every coerced agreement, every lie Ryland and Mira had told Maren. We traced the money from the loans back to Ryland's accounts, showing how he'd used Maren as a conduit. We found the letters Mira had written when she was 16, talking about how much she hated me. Letters Maren had shown to the divorce lawyer. Except they weren't real letters, they were drafts, practice runs. Mira had written them at Maren's suggestion, practicing how to sound convincing. They'd manufactured evidence against me, used it to poison the custody arrangement, to make sure I looked like the villain in the divorce. And it had worked, but now I had proof. Porter also found something else. Hidden in Maren's box of documents was a petition, unsigned but filled out completely, a request to have me declared financially incompetent. This is what they were building toward, Porter said. They get Maren to sign this, file it with the court, and suddenly you're not fit to manage your own business. Then they use those partnership agreements to take control. but Maren didn't sign it. No, she refused. That's probably why Ryland's been pressuring her so hard lately. Porter closed the file. They need her signature to make this work. Without it, the whole thing falls apart. I looked at that petition for a long time, my name at the top, all those lies underneath, and at the bottom, a blank line where Maren was supposed to sign away my entire life. They wanted war, I said quietly. Fine, Porter nodded. What's the plan? We give them exactly what they're asking for. I called Ryland the next day, told him I'd reconsidered, that maybe he was right about planning for the future, that I wanted to talk. He showed up 2 hours later with Trent in tow. Trent Ardell was everything Ryland wanted to be. Smooth, polished, the kind of guy who could sell you your own car and make you thank him for it. He worked in what he called strategic consulting, which as far as I could tell meant he helped people separate other people from their money. They came into my office like they owned it, Ryland sitting in my chair, Trent leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. So, Ryland said, you changed your mind. I'm thinking about it. Good, that's good. He pulled out that same folder, set it on the desk. This is still the deal. Partnership agreement. Gradual transition, clean and simple. I have some questions. Sure, ask away. I picked up the folder, flipped to the clause about decision-making authority. This part here. It says you and Trent would have equal say in business operations. Right? It's a partnership. But I still own the majority share. For now, yeah. Trent spoke up for the first time, his voice smooth. But as you transition out, that would shift. Standard succession planning, and this part. I pointed to another clause. The one about competency review. What's that about? Ryland waved a hand dismissively. Just legal protection. If something happened to you, if you couldn't manage things anymore, we'd have the authority to step in. Who decides if I can't manage things? We do. Me and Trent. He smiled. But that's just a formality, Dad. It's not like we'd ever actually use it. I set the folder down. I need to think about this. Ryland's smile faded. We've been through this already. I know, but this is my business. I'm not signing anything until I'm sure. Trent pushed off the wall. Soren, we're trying to help you here, but we need an answer. Mira's got plans that depend on this. What kind of plans? Investment opportunities, development projects, things that require capital. He glanced at Ryland. Capital that's currently tied up in this garage. There it was. The truth, finally out in the open. They didn't want to help me. They wanted access to the property, the land, the accounts, everything I'd built over 30 years. I'll let you know, I said. They left, frustrated but not suspicious. Not yet. That night, Porter and I made our next move. We drove to Mira's house, a rental on the north side of town that she'd been calling her wellness center online. It was supposed to be the headquarters for her retreat, the place where stressed-out professionals could come to find themselves through yoga and meditation and overpriced smoothies. Except it was a disaster. The yard was overgrown, the windows were dark, a sign on the door read, "Closed for renovation." But it looked like the renovations had stopped months ago. Permit issues, Porter said, checking his phone. She applied for a commercial use permit, got denied because the zoning doesn't allow it. That was 8 months ago. So the whole thing's been shut down. Yep, but she's still posting online like everything's fine, still taking deposits from people who think they're signing up for a retreat. I looked at the dark house. That's fraud. Technically, yes, but she'd argue it's just delayed, that she's still planning to open. Can we prove otherwise? Porter smiled. Already did. I've got complaints from 3 contractors she didn't pay, 2 neighbors who filed noise violations, and a cease and desist from the county building inspector. What do we do with it? We file it, all of it, with the county, the state licensing board, and the business bureau. He looked at me. It won't put her in jail, but it'll destroy her reputation, and without that wellness brand, she's got nothing. Do it. The filings went through the next morning. By afternoon, Mira's phone was ringing off the hook. By evening, her online posts were flooded with angry comments from people demanding refunds. She called me at 9 that night, screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "What did you do?" she shouted. "I didn't do anything." Someone filed complaints. Someone reported me. This has your fingerprints all over it. Mira, if you broke the law, that's on you. I didn't break anything. This is just bureaucratic nonsense. I was going to fix it. When? Next year? The year after? I kept my voice calm. You took people's money for a business that doesn't exist. That's called fraud. It's not fraud. It's just delayed. Tell that to the county. She was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Softer, more calculated. Dad, listen. I know we've had our differences, but this wellness center, it's important to me. It's my future. If you could just help me out, just a little bit, I could fix this. Help you how? Financially. Just enough to get the permits approved and pay off the contractors. I'd pay you back. With what? With the business. Once the retreat opens, I'll have revenue. I'll be able to pay you back with interest. And if it doesn't open? She didn't answer. Mira, I'm not giving you money. Then you're leaving me no choice. Her voice went cold again. Ryland told me you wouldn't sign the partnership agreement. He said you were being difficult. I didn't want to believe him, but I guess he was right. What's that supposed to mean? It means maybe you're not as sharp as you used to be. Maybe you're not capable of making good decisions anymore. She paused. Maybe someone needs to step in and help you before you ruin everything. There it was, the threat, finally explicit. You do what you have to do, Mira, I said. So will I. I hung up before she could respond. Porter was sitting across from me, listening to the whole thing. When I set the phone down, he raised an eyebrow. That went well. Better than you think. I pulled out my own phone, opened the recording app. Got every word. The next day, things escalated. I was in the garage, working on a transmission rebuild, when I heard vehicles pull up outside. Multiple vehicles. I walked out to see Ryland's SUV, Trent's sedan, and Mira's car all parked in my lot. They got out together, moving like a unit. Ryland in front, Trent and Mira flanking him. They looked like they were ready for war. We need to talk, Ryland said. So talk. Not out here. Inside. I led them into the office. It was cramped with all four of us, the air thick with tension. You've been interfering with Mira's business, Trent said. No pleasantries this time, straight to the accusation. I haven't interfered with anything. Someone filed complaints. Someone reported permit violations. He stepped closer. That was you. Prove it. We don't need to prove it. We know it was you. Mira's voice was shaking. You're trying to sabotage me because you're angry that we won't just let you control everything. I don't want to control anything. I want to be left alone. Then sign the partnership agreement, Ryland said. Give us what we're asking for, and we'll leave you alone. That's extortion. That's family business. He pulled out his phone, opened it, showed me the screen. You know what this is? It was the petition. The one to declare me incompetent. Maren was supposed to sign this, he said. She refused, but we don't actually need her signature. We can file it without her. We've got documentation, proof that you're making poor decisions, proof that you're not fit to run this business anymore. What proof? Your refusal to plan for succession, your failure to maintain proper business relationships, your recent erratic behavior. He smiled. We've been documenting everything, Dad. Every conversation, every decision, building a case. I looked at Trent, at Mira, at my son, standing there with that petition on his phone, threatening to destroy me with lies. And something inside me finally completely broke. Not broke like shattered, broke like a dam giving way. Get out, I said quietly. What? I said get out, all of you. Now. Dad, we're not now. There must have been something in my voice, something in my face, because they actually listened. They filed out, Ryland muttering threats, Mira crying, Trent looking back at me like he was already calculating his next move. When they were gone, I called Porter. It's time, I said. Time for what? To finish this. Porter came by that night with everything we'd collected. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence we'd gathered over the past 3 weeks. We spread it all out on my desk like a war map. Here's what we know, Porter said. Ryland's been running a property scam. He uses his reputation, your name, and borrowed money to make it look like he's got capital. Then he pressures people into deals that fall through, keeps the deposits. How many people? At least 6 that I can prove. Probably more. He pulled out a stack of complaints. They haven't reported him because he's good at making them feel like they're the problem, like they didn't read the fine print. And Mira? She's been taking deposits for that wellness retreat for 18 months, $27,000 total. None of it refunded. None of it can be refunded because she spent it. Porter tapped another folder. She's also been using your business name on loan applications. 3 different banks, all denied, but the applications themselves are fraudulent. How is that possible? She has your tax ID number, your business registration. Probably got them from Maren during the divorce. She's been using them to make it look like you're co-signing her loans. I felt my jaw tighten. What about Trent? Trent's the coordinator. He's the one who connects all the pieces. He found the lawyers who wrote up those partnership agreements. He coached Rylan on how to pressure Maren. He's the one who came up with the incompetency petition. Porter looked at me. He's also the one who's been researching your property values, looking into how much he could get if they forced a sale. They can't force a sale. Not legally, no, but if they got you declared incompetent, they could argue you needed a conservator, and if Rylan was appointed conservator, he could liquidate assets for your care. Porter's expression was grim. It's a long shot, but it's not impossible, especially if they had a sympathetic judge. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. 3 people, my own children and the man one of them married, all of them working together to strip me of everything I'd built. We need Maren's testimony, Porter said. Everything falls apart without her. She's the one who can prove they coerced her. She's the one who can show the timeline of manipulation. Will she do it? I don't know. She's scared, and she still feels guilty about what happened during the divorce. Then we convince her. I stood up. Tonight. We drove to the trailer. Maren answered the door in a bathrobe, her hair wet, looking like she'd just gotten out of the shower. Soren? Porter? What's going on? We need to talk, I said. It's important. She let us in. Porter laid out everything on her small table while I made coffee on the hot plate. When he was finished, Maren sat down heavily, staring at the documents like they might bite. They did all this? She asked. All of it, Porter said, and they used you to do it. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know it was this bad. We know? That's why we're here. I set a coffee cup in front of her. We need your help, Maren. We need you to testify about what they did, what they said, how they pressured you. Testify? You mean like in court? Maybe, or maybe just in a deposition. Something official, something that creates a legal record. She wrapped her hands around the coffee cup. They'll be so angry. They're already angry, I said. But this isn't about them anymore. It's about stopping them before they hurt someone else. She looked up at me, and I saw fear in her eyes. Real, visceral fear. What if they come after me? They won't, because once this is official, once it's on record, anything they do to you becomes witness intimidation, and that's a felony. Porter nodded. We've already set up protections. If you agree to help, we can get you out of this trailer, into a real apartment. We can make sure you're safe. Why would you do that for me? She asked. After everything I did to you during the divorce? I sat down across from her. Because whatever happened between us, you don't deserve this. And because somewhere under all the anger and the manipulation, you're still the mother of my children, even if they've forgotten that. Maren's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, Soren. For all of it. For the lies I told, the things I said. I was so angry back then. And I took it out on you, and I taught them to do the same. I know. I ruined them. I turned them into this. No. I reached across the table, touched her hand. They made their own choices. They're adults now. This is on them. She cried for a while, and I let her. When she finally stopped, she wiped her eyes and looked at Porter. What do I need to do? Porter pulled out a recorder. Just tell me everything, start to finish. Every conversation, every demand, every threat. I'll document it all, and then we'll have a lawyer review it. Maren took a shaky breath. Okay, where do I start? Start with when Rylan first came to you, Porter said. About a year ago. And she did. She talked for 2 hours, and Porter recorded every word. By the time she was finished, we had enough to bury Rylan and Mira 10 times over. But I wasn't done yet. The next day, I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I drove past Rylan's condo, waited until I saw him leave, then followed him. He went to a construction site on the east end of town. New development, houses going up in rows like teeth. He parked, got out, met with a man in a hard hat. They talked for a few minutes, Rylan gesturing at the houses, the man shaking his head. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I didn't need to. I recognized the body language. Rylan was trying to sell something, and the man wasn't buying. When Rylan left, I waited 5 minutes, then approached the man myself. Excuse me, I said. I couldn't help but notice you were talking to that guy. Tall, dark jacket. Yeah, pain in the rear, that one. What did he want? Tried to sell me on some investment deal. Said he had capital, wanted to partner on the next phase of development. The man spit into the dirt. But his numbers didn't add up. And when I pushed, he got defensive. You check his references? Tried to. Nobody called me back. He looked at me. Why? You know him? Unfortunately, yes. I handed him my card. If he contacts you again, call me. I can save you a lot of trouble. The man took the card, studied it. You're his father. Yep. That's rough. You have no idea. I left before he could ask more questions. Back in my truck, I called Porter. Ryland's still running his scam, I said. Just tried to pitch a contractor on a bogus development deal. Did you get it on tape? No, but I got the contractor's contact information. He'll talk if we need him. Good, add him to the list. Porter paused. Soren, are you sure you want to do this? Once we start moving, there's no going back. I thought about Maren in that trailer, about the text message with her photo, about Ryland sitting in my chair, Mira crying fake tears, Trent calculating angles. I'm sure, I said. All right, then let's burn it down. We spent the next week setting everything in motion. Porter filed official complaints with the state attorney's office documenting Ryland's property scam. We submitted Mira's fraudulent loan applications to the banking commission. We sent the cease and desist notices to Trent, warning him to stop using my business information. And then we waited. It didn't take long. Ryland called me 3 days later, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. What did you do? I protected my business. You filed complaints against me, against Mira. You're trying to ruin us. I'm trying to stop you from ruining me. We're your children. Then act like it. I kept my voice calm. Stop lying. Stop stealing. Stop treating your mother like an ATM. This is about Maren? Are you kidding me? He laughed, bitter and sharp. She called me crying yesterday. Said you'd been to see her, that you'd convinced her to turn against us. I didn't convince her of anything. I showed her the truth. The truth according to you? No, the truth according to documents, bank records, recordings, evidence. He was quiet for a moment. You recorded us? Every conversation? That's illegal. Actually, it's not. This is a one-party consent state. As long as one person in the conversation knows it's being recorded, it's legal. I paused. I'm that person. You're bluffing. Try me. Another long silence. Then, what do you want? I want you to leave me alone. Leave Maren alone. Stop trying to take my business. Stop trying to steal my life. And if we don't, then I take everything I have to the authorities, and you deal with the consequences. You wouldn't do that. We're family. You stopped being family the moment you forged my signature, the moment you threatened your mother, the moment you decided I was just an obstacle to get around. I took a breath. I gave you a chance, Ryland. You and Mira both. I waited, hoping you'd come to your senses, but you didn't, so now we do this the hard way. You're going to regret this. We'll see. He hung up. I set the phone down and looked at Porter, who'd been listening to the whole thing. Think he got the message? I asked. Oh, he got it. Porter stood up, stretched. Question is, what's he going to do about it? We found out the next day. I was at the garage midday when a tow truck pulled up. Not one of mine. A competitor's truck from 2 towns over. The driver got out, walked into my bay, and handed me a work order. What's this? I asked. Repossession notice. We're here to collect a 2015 Chevy Silverado, registered to this address. I don't have a 2015 Silverado registered here. According to this, you do. He showed me the paperwork. Sure enough, there was a truck listed under my business name, with a loan default notice attached. This is wrong, I said. I never took out a loan for this vehicle. Take it up with the bank, buddy. I'm just doing my job. He walked back outside, started looking around my lot. I followed, phone already in my hand, calling Porter. We've got a problem, I said when he answered. What kind of problem? Repo truck. They're trying to seize a vehicle I don't own. Don't let them take anything. I'll be there in 10 minutes. The driver was circling a pickup in my lot, checking VIN numbers against his paperwork. I walked over, stood between him and the truck. You're not taking that. Sir, I have legal authority. That's not the truck you're looking for. Check the VIN again. He did, frowned, checked his paperwork. This doesn't match. No, it doesn't, because whatever loan default you're here for, it's fraudulent. You'll have to prove that. I will, but until I do, you're not taking anything off this lot. Porter arrived before things could escalate further. He had a badge, even though he was retired, and he knew how to use it. The driver backed off, said he'd report back to his company, and left. Ryland did this, I said. Obviously. Porter looked at the paperwork. He took out a loan using your business name, defaulted on it, and now they're trying to repo collateral. Can he do that? He already did. Question is how many more of these are out there. The answer was 4. Over the next 3 days, I got notices for 4 different loans I'd never taken out, all in default, all with my business listed as the borrower. Porter and I spent hours on the phone with banks and loan companies, explaining the fraud, filing disputes, providing evidence. It was exhausting, infuriating, and exactly what Rylan wanted. "He's trying to wear you down," Porter said. "Make you so tired of fighting that you'll just give up and give him what he wants." "That's not going to happen." "I know, but we need to end this before it gets worse." "How much worse can it get?" Porter didn't answer. He didn't need to. That night, I got another call, this time from Mira. "Dad?" Her voice was small, frightened. "I need help." "What kind of help?" "Trent left me, just packed his stuff and walked out. He said he couldn't be part of this anymore." She was crying now, real tears, not the manipulative kind. "He took all our savings. I can't pay rent. I can't pay anything." Part of me wanted to hang up, to tell her this was exactly what she deserved. But another part, the part that remembered pushing her on swings and teaching her to ride a bike, couldn't do it. "Where are you?" I asked. "At the house, our rental." "Stay there. I'm coming over." Porter shook his head when I told him where I was going. "Bad idea." "Probably, but she's still my daughter." "She's been trying to destroy you for a year." "I know, but maybe if I show her there's another way, she'll take it." I drove to Mira's rental. The lights were on inside, but the place looked even worse than before. The sign was gone. The windows were covered with paper from the inside. I knocked. Mira opened the door, and I barely recognized her. No makeup, swollen eyes, hair pulled back in a messy knot. She looked like Maren had looked in that trailer, broken and small. "Dad." She threw her arms around me, sobbing into my shoulder. I stood there, awkward, unsure what to do. Finally, I hugged her back. "Come on," I said. "Let's go inside." We sat in her kitchen. The place was a mess. Dishes piled in the sink, mail scattered across the counter. I made tea while she cried, and when she finally calmed down, I set a cup in front of her. "Tell me what happened." Trent said he couldn't do it anymore, said Rylan was getting too reckless, that the whole thing was going to blow up. He wanted me to leave with him, to walk away from everything. When I said no, he left anyway. "Why did you say no?" "Because you're my father." She looked up at me, eyes red and pleading. "I know I've been awful. I know I've said terrible things and done worse. But I can't just abandon my family." "You abandoned me a long time ago, Mira." "I know, and I'm sorry." "I am. But it wasn't all my fault." She wrapped her hands around the teacup. "When you and Mom divorced, she told me things. About how you'd hurt her. About how you'd left us. She made me believe you were the villain." "And you believed her?" "I was a teenager. Of course I believed her. She was my mom." Mira took a shaky breath. "And then Rylan started talking about the business, about how you were planning to sell it and leave us with nothing. He made it sound like we had to protect ourselves. So you decided to take it from me." "We decided to make sure we had a future." She looked at me. "But it went too far, didn't it? It got out of control." "Yes, it did. Can you forgive me?" I looked at my daughter, sitting there broken and desperate, asking for forgiveness she hadn't earned. And I realized something. This was a test, not for her, for me. If I forgave her now, if I let her back in without consequences, she'd do it again. Maybe not right away, maybe not in the same way, but she'd fall back into old patterns because that's what people do when they're never held accountable. "I can forgive you," I said slowly, "but not yet. Not until you make this right." "How do I do that?" "You testify. You tell the truth about what Rylan did, what Trent planned, what you all did to Maren. You help me stop this before anyone else gets hurt." She shook her head. "I can't betray Rylan." "He's already betrayed you, Mira. He's the one who took out those fraudulent loans. He's the one who's been pressuring Maren. Trent figured it out and ran. Now you need to decide if you're going down with Rylan or if you're going to save yourself. He's my brother, and I'm your father, but that didn't stop you." She flinched like I'd struck her. I stood up, set my cup in the sink. "The offer stands. You want to make this right, you know how to reach me, but I'm done being the one who gets hurt while you all figure yourselves out." I left her sitting at that table, crying into her cold tea. Outside, the night air was cool and clean. I got in my truck and drove home, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Not quite peace, but close. Things moved fast after that. Porter filed formal complaints with the state attorney, backed by Maren's testimony and the evidence we'd collected. Within a week, investigators were looking into Rylan's property deals and Mira's fraudulent loan applications. And then everything broke wide open. A construction contractor Rylan had scammed came forward with his own evidence. Then another. Then 3 more. It turned out Rylan had been running variations of the same con for years, always staying just under the threshold that would trigger serious investigation. But add them all together, and it was a pattern. A clear, undeniable pattern of fraud. The banks started calling, asking questions about the loans in my name. I sent them to Porter, who walked them through the evidence of identity fraud. One by one, the false loans were flagged, investigated, and traced back to Rylan. He tried to cover his tracks, changed his story, claimed I'd given him permission to use my business information, said it was all a misunderstanding. But we had the recordings. We had Maren's testimony. We had documents with forged signatures and timestamps that proved he was lying. And then Mira broke. She called me 2 weeks after our conversation, her voice hollow. "I'll do it," she said. "I'll testify." "Why now?" "Because Rylan came by yesterday. He tried to get me to sign something, some document that would make me liable for his deals. When I refused, he got angry. Really angry." She paused. "He said if I didn't help him, he'd make sure I went down with him." "So you're not doing this because it's right. You're doing it to save yourself." "Does it matter?" "Yeah, Mira, it does." Porter took Mira's testimony 3 days later. She told him everything. How Rylan had planned the partnership takeover, how Trent had researched my property values, how they'd all agreed to pressure Maren into signing documents that would give them legal leverage. She also admitted to writing those letters when she was 16, the ones Maren had used in the divorce. Admitted they'd been fake, manufactured to make me look bad. "Why'd you do it?" Porter asked her on the recording. "Because Mom asked me to. She said it would help her in court. And I was angry at Dad for leaving, so I did it." There was a long pause. I didn't know she'd actually used them. I thought it was just practice. But Maren had used them, and they'd worked. The judge had seen those letters, those angry words from a teenage daughter, and ruled in Maren's favor on almost everything. With Mira's testimony added to everything else, we had enough. Porter compiled it all into a comprehensive file. The forged signatures, the fraudulent loans, the coerced agreements, the manufactured evidence from the divorce. It was airtight. "I want them to know," I told Porter. "I want them to understand exactly what they did." "What are you planning?" "I'm going to invite them here, all of them, and I'm going to show them exactly what they're facing." "That's a terrible idea." "Probably, but I'm doing it anyway." I sent the messages that afternoon. Short, simple. "Final meeting, my garage, tomorrow at 6. Be there." That night, Porter and I set up the garage office. We arranged chairs facing my desk. We set up a recorder in the corner, hidden but functional. We laid out copies of every document, every piece of evidence, in neat stacks. "You sure about this?" Porter asked. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." The next day crawled by. At 5:30, I closed the garage, locked the bay doors, turned on the lights in the office, and waited. Rylan arrived first, at 5 minutes to 6. He walked in, looked around at the documents on my desk. "Dad?" "Rylan, sit down." He sat, eyeing the stacks of evidence. Mira arrived next, at 2 minutes past 6. She looked terrible. She avoided looking at Rylan, took a seat as far from him as possible. "Where's Trent?" I asked. "I don't know. He won't return my calls." At 6:15, I gave up waiting for Trent. Porter came in from outside, closed the door, and leaned against it. I stood up, looked at my children. "Do you know why you're here?" I asked. "To listen to you lecture us," Rylan said. "No, you're here because you need to understand what's about to happen." I picked up the first stack of documents, dropped them in front of Rylan. "These are complaints filed with the state attorney's office, 6 different victims of your property scam, each one documented, verified, and ready for prosecution." His face went pale. I picked up the second stack, dropped them in front of Mira. "These are your fraudulent loan applications. 3 banks, all filed with my business information. The fraud itself is a felony." She didn't say anything. "And these," I said, picking up the third stack, "are the documents you forced Maren to sign. The forged signatures, the coerced agreements, the threats you made to your own mother." I set them in the middle of the desk where both could see. "You tried to take everything from me," I said quietly. "My business, my reputation, my freedom. You manufactured evidence, lied to your mother, and committed multiple felonies, all because you thought you deserved what I'd built." "We're family," Mira said, her voice breaking. "Inherit, yes. Steal, no." I leaned forward. "You didn't just steal from me. You stole from Maren. You bled her dry, used her pain against her, and when she had nothing left, you threatened her." "She was working with you." Rylan stood up, angry now. "She turned on us." "She told the truth." I pulled out one more document. "This is a trust agreement. As of yesterday, this business, this property, everything I own is now in a protected trust. You can't touch it, you can't claim it, you can't take it. Ryland grabbed the document, read it. You transferred everything. Everything. When I retire, it'll be sold and the proceeds will go to charity. I looked at him. You'll get nothing. You can't do that. I already did. Mira was crying now. Dad, please. We made mistakes, but we're still your children. Then act like it, I said. Take responsibility. Make amends. And if we don't? Ryland's voice was cold. Then I hand everything over to the state attorney tomorrow morning, and you face the consequences. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Ryland stood up. Fine, do whatever you want. He walked out, slamming the door behind him. Mira stayed sitting, her hands covering her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. Sorry isn't enough, Mira. She stood up slowly and left. Porter and I stood in the empty office. You did the right thing, he said. Doesn't feel like it. It never does. The next week was quiet. No calls from Ryland, no messages from Mira. It was like they'd vanished. Porter called me on Thursday morning. Ryland's trying to file a countersuit. Claims you coerced Maren into giving false testimony. Can he prove any of that? No, but he can make noise. Drag things out. Then we don't let it get that far, I said. We finish this. Now. That afternoon, I called a lawyer who specialized in family law and fraud cases. His name was Vincent Cross. I told him everything. The divorce, the manipulation, the forged signatures, the fraudulent loans, everything. Vincent listened, taking notes. When I finished, he set down his pen. You have an airtight case, he said, but family court is complicated. Judges don't like seeing parents prosecute their children. So what do I do? You give them one more chance to settle. We draw up an agreement, they admit fault, make restitution, and agree to cease all contact. In exchange, you don't press charges. And if they refuse, then we go scorched earth, file criminal complaints, make their lives very difficult. The next day, I called Ryland. We need to talk. I'm done talking. I'm offering you a deal. Meet me tomorrow. Bring Mira. Where? Here, the garage. Noon. The next day, Vincent sat in my office, documents arranged in precise stacks. Porter was there too, watching everything. At noon, Ryland and Mira arrived. Ryland had a lawyer with him. Vincent spoke first. We're here to discuss a settlement agreement. My client is willing to forgo criminal prosecution in exchange for these terms. He slid a document across the desk. Ryland's lawyer picked it up, started reading. Admission of fault for fraud and identity theft. Restitution payments totaling $73,000. Permanent cease and desist. No contact orders. She looked up. Oh, this is absurd. It's generous, Vincent said. The alternative is criminal charges that carry a minimum of 3 years in prison. You can't prove criminal intent. We have recordings, testimony, documentary evidence. Ryland leaned forward. This is extortion. No, I said. This is accountability. Mira spoke up. And if we do? If we sign this? Then it's over, I said. You pay back what you took. You leave me alone, and we all move on. You're taking our inheritance. You've turned our mother against us. You're destroying our reputation. You did that yourself. His lawyer whispered something to him. They argued quietly. Finally, he looked up. We need time to consider. You have until Monday, Vincent said. After that, we file. They left. Vincent packed up his briefcase. That went better than I expected. You think they'll sign? Eventually. They're cornered. Over the weekend, I tried to keep busy, but my mind kept circling back to that office. My phone buzzed Saturday evening. A text from an unknown number. Dad, it's Mira. I'll sign the agreement. I can't speak for Ryland, but I'll do it. I'm sorry. Monday morning, I called Vincent. I heard from Mira, I said. She's willing to sign. And Ryland? No word. Then we proceed. I'll file the complaints this afternoon. Wait, give him until tomorrow. One more day. Vincent sighed. Fine, but Tuesday morning, we're filing regardless. Tuesday came. No call from Ryland. At 9 a.m., Vincent called. I'm filing now. Are you sure? I'm sure, I said. The complaints went through. The state attorney's office opened an official investigation. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. The investigation moved fast. Within 2 weeks, the state attorney had enough evidence to file formal charges against Ryland. 3 counts of fraud, 2 counts of identity theft, 1 count of witness coercion. Mira signed the settlement agreement. She admitted fault, agreed to repay her portion, and signed a no-contact order. She got a deal with the prosecutor. No criminal charges in exchange for her testimony against Rylan. Rylan hired an expensive lawyer and prepared to fight. It didn't work. In March, Rylan's trial date was set. I sat in the courtroom and watched my son face a judge. The prosecution laid out their case: the forged signatures, the fraudulent loans, the coerced testimony. They called witnesses: the contractors Rylan had scammed, the banks he'd defrauded, Maren herself. Then they called me. The prosecutor asked me to explain my relationship with Rylan. She asked about the forged documents. She asked how it felt to discover my own son had been stealing from me. I looked at Rylan. It felt like losing him twice, I said. The trial lasted 3 days. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Porter called me with the sentencing results: 18 months in prison, 5 years probation, full restitution. 2 days later, the state licensing board called. They'd revoked Mira's business license and required her to refund all client deposits. She was barred from operating any similar business for 5 years. Trent hadn't gotten away clean either. They'd found irregularities in his business registrations and forwarded everything to the authorities. I sat in my office that night, looking at an old family photo. Everyone was smiling. Everyone looked happy. It was a lie. I put the photo in a drawer. 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday afternoon, Mira showed up at the garage. She looked different. Shorter hair, jeans and a plain t-shirt, no makeup. "Hi, Dad," she said. "Mira, can we talk?" We walked to the office. "I got a job," she said, "at a coffee shop. I'm paying back everyone I owe." "Good. I wanted you to know that I'm trying. I know you don't owe me anything, but I needed you to know that I'm not giving up." I looked at her and felt something shift. Not forgiveness, but maybe the possibility of it. "Keep trying," I said. She left, and I watched her car pull out. Porter came out from the back room. "Think she means it?" "Time will tell." The months passed. Business was steady. I hired a kid from town to help with the heavy work. Maren stopped by occasionally for coffee. I never heard from Rylan directly. Maren told me he was doing his time quietly, working in the prison library. She visited him sometimes. I didn't. Then I called everyone together one last time: Maren, Mira, even Rylan, escorted by a corrections officer. Porter and Vincent were there too. We all sat down in that cramped office. "I called you here because there's something you need to understand," I said. I pulled out a folder. "This is the trust agreement for my business. What I didn't tell you is what happens to it when I'm gone." I opened the folder, showed them the pages. "When I retire or pass away, everything will be liquidated. The proceeds will be split 4 ways: a 1/4 to Maren, 1/4 to Rylan, 1/4 to Mira, and the 4th quarter goes to a scholarship fund for kids who want to learn a trade." They stared at me, confused. Rylan's voice was hoarse. "Why?" "Because you're still my children. Despite everything, I still love you, but this is the last time, the last chance you get." Mira was crying. "The trust is irrevocable," I continued. "You can't contest it. It's done. So stop fighting me. Stop fighting each other." I stood up. "That's all I have to say." The corrections officer led Rylan out. He paused at the door, looked back. "Thank you," he said quietly. I nodded. Mira left. Maren stayed behind. "That was incredibly generous," she said. "Or incredibly stupid." "Maybe both." She left, and I was alone with Porter. "Well," he said, "that was something." "Yeah. Feel better?" "I feel finished, and that's close enough." We locked up the garage and drove into town. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The war was over. I'd won.